like Harper again, Yeah, so it was fun childhood memories. Harlow writes in, I'm a medium, so I've seen spirits all my life. It started when I was very young and saw two elderly people being put into an ambulance while simultaneously seeing them standing beside the door of the cab as they watched their bodies being loaded in. A white sheet covered them as they were being put into the gurney. They both looked at me and then at the bodies again. They knew I could see them, but seemed traumatized. I was young, but not sure how old I was. I'd been running around the immediate area outside my apartment exploring, and when I saw that, I ran back to tell my family what I saw. They were all gathered around the TV hanging out. It must have been a weekend. They all laughed at me because I was the kid who told great stories. These sightings continued on my entire life, and I had some fear of it for a time until I realized that it was a gift. When people would and still do ask me if I get scared, I say no and explain it this way. Imagine that you're in your home alone and you turn around to see your surprise. Gandhi is standing in the middle of your kitchen. Say you don't have any idea that Gandhi is peaceful and would never hurt a fly. Your immediate reaction will be one of fear, and it's natural because you don't know who the person is. If a stranger disappeared in your house out of nowhere, you'd be afraid. But if you knew who it was, then the fear would dissipate and you'd simply continue with the communication. So the fear you feel upon the surprise visit of a ghost is natural for the moment, but when you know you have this ability and simply ask who it is and begin communication, you get used to seeing people just show up. Ghosts to me are just like people, only talk telepathically and have superpowers. We should all be so lucky. When the fear subsides, your gift strengthens. When I worked in property management, a woman was murdered in her home on our property. It was a terrible day for everyone. Media showed up, nosy, and wanted a story. CSI was on the property, just like on the TV show, and had me having to escort the family into the apartment after it was released was very hard. I had to go in and see the brain matter and blood all over everything. I figured he killed her with a weapon of opportunity because the lid to the toilet top was missing. I begged the brother to let me have it cleaned before they go to see it this way. They did not need to see this and understand what occurred. Need to see this to understand what occurred. The brother agreed. I called hazmat out immediately, and they were amazed as to what they did, and so professional and respectful. I was a liaison for the family and offered some comfort as we sorted out who would come, retrieve her things, etc. That night, after talking to her brother during the day and making arrangements for her items, I was in my living room trying to decompress from the stress, eating my favorite sour cream potato chips and trying to do something normal that would get my mind off what happened. I was also sad and devastated for her and her family when suddenly, to my right, she appeared. The murdered woman, standing to my right, saying nothing, just waiting for me to acknowledge her. Now, I've been called the real-life ghost whisperer because it happened so much to me, so honestly, I was exhausted and didn't want to even communicate, but I had to. My instant thoughts to myself was, I'm just trying to eat my chips, man. Can't I get a break? But my compassion was always took over. And I looked at her and said, hello. She asked me what happened. I told her, you're okay now. You can move on. I'm helping your family and your brother, and everything is okay. It's okay to go on now. You're at peace. With that, she looked at me satisfied with my answer and slowly faded out. Just like that. She seemed to be confused a bit, but when I told her it was okay to leave, I saw it was her love for her family that kept her. Sometimes when someone is taken so quickly, they're slightly confused in between dimensions. Once I tell them it's okay to leave, they seem to instantly understand it is far better where they are going. I never saw her again. This type of thing is a common occurrence for me, and many people would be frightened by it, but sometimes I feel I am on the other side more than on this one. They're my friends. I have so many stories, but this was one that came out today. Thank you for this forum. I'm hoping to become an EPP for Christmas. My husband knows what I want. Talk soon. Harlow.
Well, okay. I don't know if I could ever just sit there eating my potato chips and then somebody pops in to ever get used to that. Even if you've seen it since a young age.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you just never feel like you're ever alone.
I think it'd be unsettling to never be alone, but I could see if it's like a daily occurrence and they're always just kind of around. I think you get comfortable with it. To a certain extent.
Do they ever pop in like at really bad times, like you're in the bathroom or the shower or something?
Or you're doing it?
Well, I wasn't going to go there.
I
was just thinking, your alone time in the bathroom.
I'm wondering if, because there are so many different types of spirits out there. It seems that Harlow is lucky enough, from what I understand from this letter, that when she does see them, they tend to be humans.
Yeah.
And they tend to be fairly harmless. I wonder, Harlow, have you ever experienced one that wasn't so harmless, that was actually maybe never had been a human, that was trying to deceive you in some way, shape, or form? Or do you only just see the ones that were formerly human, which may be the case? I'm just curious.
Yeah, and if you ever get any that are angry and upset because they don't understand what's happened.
Do they ever refuse to cross over?
So many questions.
So many. So please feel free to write in and elaborate, if you would. 855-853-4802 is our phone number as well here at Real Ghost Stories Online. Mark writes in, hello. That's our number. Harlow writes in, hello, Tony and Jenny. Follow up. A medium confronts a family and helps the murder victim cross over.
Do you remember that story?
Refresh me briefly.
Okay, Harlow is able to see people like from the movie Sixth Sense. She can just flat out see them. They're always there.
Okay.
She was or I don't know, she may still be, but she managed an apartment complex and there was a murder there.
Okay.
And she had the apartment cleaned up before the family went in and got all the possessions of the woman that died. But then later when she got home, was trying to relax, kicking back, eating potato chips, here comes the murdered woman. And so she told the murdered woman that it was okay, she needed to go on to the light, and she essentially crossed over. And she told us about that. So she's kind of following up, because we had a whole slew of questions after that story, what it was like just a day in her shoes.
Okay. Continue on. It says, what's up, you guys? You made me laugh with all your questions at the end. I'll answer them all and share another story. I have to start by saying that most times the experience we have with the paranormal is gratefully influenced by people's fear. It is no coincidence that I do not have horrible experiences with ghosts or entities, despite the fact that I have met more of them than the average person. I had a transition walker a long time ago who assisted me in my awakening to gifts I already had. Mind you, he was not teaching me the gifts, but simply said he was awakening me to what I already knew. He was like a guardian who came to me when I was ready to remember. I am a firm believer that we carry with us every experience we've ever had from life to life in our cellular structure. This creates a feeling of familiarity with people, places, and also awareness. It feels familiar because it is already known from within. With that being said, one of the things he asked me to remember was that no being, spirit, or entity is greater than me, and I was no greater than any spirit or entity. He asked me to imagine myself sitting down, and that I had a fishing pole to see my legs dangling over as I kicked them back and forth. That he said, look out into the vastness to realize that you have cast your pole out into the universe while sitting on the moon. That's how big you are. That's how big we all are. But we think we're small. Never forget that lesson. I took it with me into every experience with ghosts and houses or businesses, clearings that I've ever done. And because of that, I've never felt any fear. This does not mean that they will not try to scare you. I had an experience once where I was called in to do a clearing of a home, experiencing doors opening and closing in the hallways. And as they sat in the living room, the general feeling of being watched, or that some other thing was in their home, they were afraid. Sadly, they had gone into a spiritual store who immediately sold them on the presence being a demon or negative simply because the owner was having experiences and was afraid. This irks me how often people jump to it being negative and calling every experience a demon because it's paranormal and because they're afraid. Part of my job in doing clearings is teaching the lessons of how powerful we are and that none are greater than us or smaller, and to teach that not all experiences are threatening because they are paranormal. Most times it's simply a communication with the events picking up in power when the ghost or entity is being ignored. I accepted the request to come to the home. On my way over to the home, as is the custom, the energy in the home already begins communicating with me through the energy profiling. I felt the energy of a male and a younger woman when I arrived in the home and began my cleansing, and I found out that there was a girl in the mirror of the child's room. She was a young girl, just over 18, and I asked her why she was there. She simply said, "Because I like the children." I told her she would have to go, however, because her energy is frightening the family and that she could go into the light and that it was way better than hiding out in the mirror in the house. No words were transpired after that. She simply was sucked out of the mirror by the white light funnel, choosing to leave. I thought we were done, yet I completed every room with my clearings. Little did I know we were not done. When I entered the room of the lady of the house, I felt the male there and saw him with my third eye. This vision is a strange thing. The brain registers that nothing is standing in front of you. The third eye gives you the exact look of their face and body. He was tall, dark, and handsome. I don't remember his name now, but it was an unusual name, fitting for the spirit guide he was. I asked him what was happening, and he told me why I was there. The doors slamming were concerning to the family. He went on to tell me the lengthy story of how he had been trying to help the lady of the house for years, which she had terrible health problems in the past years, that he was trying to assist her healing, and that she knew he was there, but ignored his help. The doors slamming were to get her attention, also out of slight frustration. I asked if he could please not do that, and told him I would speak with her as a liaison to him. I assured him, after this talk, she would listen moving forward. When I was done, I sat with her and told her of the young girl and how she was in the mirror and that she had left. She said no particular connection to the house, and I also did not ask the details. She was gone, and that was good enough for me. She revealed to me that her children had been more irritated lately and that they had been talking to new imaginary friends. She had not disclosed that before. I find those moments very comforting to me. I told her about the male presence in her house and that he was her spirit guide. When I spoke his name, she began to cry. I knew then she had known him before and felt that she was trying to turn off the gift of knowing. You can't do that, however. Once you turn on the light, you always know the light exists. I asked her if my feeling was true, and it was. She began to tell me her long story of bad health, her communicating with him before all her health issues and troubles over the past years, and how she began to shut him out and why. Sometimes people think it would be easier to deny who they are and fit in with everyone else. I told her to imagine a world in which she needed to communicate with someone for years. That person would not listen and went to great lengths to shut you out. I asked her if she, too, would slam some doors. She laughed through her tears and said yes. I told her from now on that he agreed not to do that in exchange, for her to pay attention to him when she feels him, that he was only trying to help her. He, after all, had a job to do and was assigned to her. After my visit, they no longer had any paranormal activity, but even greater than that was that they no longer had fear of those in the other world. I wish very much that people would look into themselves to see their own fear and to do their best not to project them onto others, humans or ghost. This, to answer one of your questions quickly that you had over the reading of my story of the Crossing Over episode 1. Do you ever get used to ghosts just popping up? When you have no fear and you see things, you must be from the perspective of one who has this occur quite regularly and therefore becomes a non-fearful average occurrence. You do get used to it when you let go of fear, but that it doesn't happen constantly. There are gaps between experiences. Number 2, do you or do they ever show up at bad times, like bathing, bedrooms, or doing the grown-up? No, not really. Maybe it's time, or maybe it's some spirit etiquette. Had one show up in the hall once when I had just gotten home from work and I was busy. She looked like the Grudge, and I saw her for a moment in passing and just yelled out, "No!" When I looked back, she got the message and left. 3, are they ever harmful? Not to me, because they are no bigger than me and I am no bigger than them. I'm the girl who fishes off the moon into the universe, and how powerful could they be? Number 4, Do they ever refuse to cross over? Yes, and I'll share my next story for another home clearing that I did where there was an entity that was threatening. 5, are there any ghosts I meet that are angry or upset? More irritated by something attached to places out of love or sadness? Yes. Angry? No. Perhaps I don't experience that energy because I do not come from exhibiting fear or irritation and surely do not use hellfire and brimstone incarnations to get them out. That shit would irritate anyone. I see them laugh when people do that. Want to piss off a ghost? Start yelling and talking shit. If it would bring out the worst in a human being, why would it not in a ghost? I'm just saying. Okay. Next story will be of a house clearing with an entity inside. The girl who was his cohort and the dream my husband had of the house the night before I had to go in. Boo, Harlow.
That answers a lot of questions that we've always kind of talked about. I know sometimes we bring them up and then we forget to, ask one of our few listeners that have these abilities.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. I guess it would take a lot of discipline and training to get used to that.
I don't think I could ever get used to that. It would be very interesting, and I'm very intrigued. And part of me is like, ooh, it'd be neat to see a ghost. But part of me is like, I don't ever want to see a ghost.
You've already seen a ghost.
How so?
Up in West Bend. West Bend.
Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah. We did in that window. See, and I guess what I mean by that is like more so like
on ground level in your face.
On ground level, like right in front of me.
Hi, I'm a ghost.
Yeah. I mean, although maybe you have and you never really know it, There's so many cases like that, like your story,
right.
Mom, about she thought that the guy that was there was just a guy giving advice on the business, Although that one we did see was way up in a clock tower, so it wasn't immediately right there in front of us. But in fact, we did see an entity, so.
We did.